What rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. So wrote W.B. Yeats, the 1923 winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature, in perhaps his most famous poem, The Second Coming. And Yeats was one of the 120 winners of the Nobel Prize for Literature since 1921. And in this video, I'm going to give you my quick cultural tour of the winners of the Nobel Prize for Literature between 1922 and 1928. I'm Jeff Rich. Welcome to the Burning Archive. All my details are in the video description below, so do check it out at your leisure. I'm going to read them, but you can read even just little bits too by following along with these videos and subscribing to my Substack at jeffrich.substack.com. You'll get a free weekly email every week with some links and resources to all 120 winners of the Nobel Prize for Literature. So this week I'm looking at the winners from 1922 to 1928. We're doing 7 winners in each week, one for each day of the week. All these winners are from Europe, and Europe has Yeats' poem about rough beasts slouching towards Bethlehem to be born evoked. European society in the 1920s was in turmoil. Empires had collapsed, socialism had challenged the bourgeois and embraced the peasants of Eastern Europe, and declining aristocrats mocked the rising commercialism that perhaps was embodied by England and its financial empire. Communists clashed with religious thinkers in Russia, in Spain, and all across Europe. And a storm of resentful racism was brewing. And in these years between 1922 and 1928, the 7 Nobel laureates dramatized those tensions in their work and in their lives. The 1927 winner of the Nobel Prize is Henri Bergson from France. In 1927, the Swedish Academy gave its literature prize again to a philosopher, not a novelist, not a poet, a philosopher. And indeed, Bergson may well be the best philosopher ever to win the Nobel Prize. He also was the first Jew, if my reckoning is correct, to win the Nobel Prize for Literature on the cusp of the Shoah. And as we'll find out, that's not irrelevant to Bergson's story. His philosophy suffused French literary thought in the early 20th century, most memorably in the works of Marcel Proust in his theory of involuntary memory. And indeed, some say that Marcel Proust used Bergson as a model for one of the main characters in the enormous novel Remembrance of Things Past or In Search of Lost Time. It was very much the mood of the times of early writers of modernism that a mere experience and intuition are more important to understand reality than abstract classical rationalism. Bergson lived a quiet life, very much like Immanuel Kant, and wrote some major books of philosophy, which I have links to the text of in my Substack at jeffrich.substack.com. And although it's sort of hard to quote from philosophy, I find at least, the key ideas about involuntary memory and are caught in this brief quotation. Bergson lectured widely to France's elite at the Collège de France from 1904 and around the world for decades. But by the 1920s, he was leading a retired life of an ailing professor and witnessing also the growing storm of resentful racism, the storm of anti-Semitism that was affecting Germany, obviously, but also France and most of Europe, of Greater Europe, including Russia. His, and I guess what is today called Ukraine, his last years were lived in German-occupied France, subject to the anti-Semitic laws imposed by the Vichy government. And although in these last sad years Bergson was tempted to convert to Catholicism, which he found more compatible with his ideas, he chose to stand with his people, having witnessed the growing waves of fascism and anti-Semitism. And indeed, in 1940, after the German occupation of France, Bergson, like other Jews, was required to register at police stations. And there he wrote down on his police form, his name, saying academic, philosopher, Nobel Prize winner, Jew. His ideas are, in a way, making a comeback, including in the work of Ian McGilchrist, who's reasonably popular on YouTube. And he also is seen to have had some affinities with the work of a major Indian philosopher of the early 20th century, Aurobindo. And again, if you go to my Substack, you'll find links to his complete works in French, as well as the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy entry on Bergson. And I hope you've enjoyed this cultural tour of the 7 Nobel Literature Laureates from 1922.